Hi, third grade, and welcome back to your Green Grammar book. Today we're going to go over the final section of week 16, the Thursday section. Number 1, use the subordinating conjunction to combine the two sentences. Label the independent and dependent clauses of your sentence. The dinner was so bad, Dan wouldn't eat it. They want us to use the subordinating conjunction that in order to make that into one sentence instead of two separate sentences. So we've been either putting it in the middle between the two sentences or putting it at the beginning. Let's see how putting it in the middle sounds. The dinner was so bad that Dan wouldn't eat it. I think that makes perfect sense. That's the one I'm going with. So the dinner was so bad that Dan wouldn't eat it. Perfect. Pretty simple. Just added the word that in there. Now we have to find and label our clauses. The first clause is the dinner was so bad. All right, so draw a little U under that part and let's think. The dinner was so bad. Could that part alone be a complete sentence? The dinner was so bad. Absolutely it can. In fact, up above in the example, it was a complete sentence. So therefore, since it can be a complete sentence and stand on its own, we use the word independent to describe that. That is our independent clause. The dinner was so bad. Our other clause in that sentence now is that Dan wouldn't eat it. I think adding that word that in there makes it a dependent clause because now that is not a complete sentence, that Dan wouldn't eat it. So now we have our independent clause and then our dependent clause. Number 2, identify if the sentence is simple, compound, or complex. As hard as I tried, I couldn't figure out the puzzle. Well, I can see right away that we have two clauses here. The first clause is, as hard as I tried. Could that be a complete sentence on its own? As hard as I tried. No. Therefore, I put a little U under that and labeled it with dependent. Okay? But the other clause, I couldn't figure out the puzzle. Could that be a complete sentence? I couldn't figure out the puzzle. Absolutely. Therefore, since it could stand alone on its own, it's our independent clause. And when you have a sentence that is mixed with a dependent and an independent clause, like number 1 is as well, number 1 and number 2, the sentences that we made, those are both complex sentences. Again, because they're mixed between an independent and a dependent clause combined. We're going to talk more about sentence types later on this year in third grade. So if you still think these ones are a little bit tricky, do not worry. Number 3 are my favorite kinds. Use descriptive language to rewrite the sentence. She entered the classroom. Right now, that's a 4-word sentence that seems pretty boring in my opinion. So I'm going to jazz it up a little bit. Let's see what I did. Panting and out of breath, she burst into the silent classroom. So in this example, as the writer, I envisioned a student who was running late to class, kind of speed walking in the hallway, getting out of breath, and then bursting into the classroom where everyone was silent. So now you can see, because I added some more description there, you can visualize what's happening better in that instance. Okay. Number 4, find a word with a prefix or suffix that matches the definition in parentheses. The oven needs to get blank before we put the cake in. We need a word that means more hot. And actually, we talked about this last week when we were doing comparatives and superlatives. What do we add on to the end of the word to mean more? Hopefully you remember hotter, ER, that's the comparative. The oven needs to get hotter before we put the cake in. And lastly, number 5, use context clues to determine the meaning of the underlined word. Black-eyed tree frogs are so rare that very few are seen in nature anymore. Okay, they want us to figure out what that word rare means based on the clues in the sentence. Well, it says very few are seen. That's what rare means. So there's very few of them, or it means that they're very uncommon. All right, so I wrote kind of a synonym for rare, the word uncommon. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I will see you back next week to go over week 17.